Today I want to talk about my 3 favorite words: open and let go. And to me, this really contains the whole essence of the Dharma, and I can play with it kind of endlessly. I first heard this phrase from the German monk Bhikkhu Analayo in one of his books when we were doing the retreat on the 4 establishments of mindfulness. And it's been so helpful and grounding in my practice. And I'd like to share some of the different ways that I like to play with it. So I first use it in starting with just connecting with my body and the breath, opening, breathing in, feeling and connecting with the body, and let go. Exhale, release the tension, relax. Then I come to the mind, open to whatever mental, emotional experience I'm having at that moment, allowing it to be, feeling it, feeling the discomfort, the worry, the fear, without judgment, and then let go, knowing that it's impermanent and it'll pass. Venerable recently gave some very helpful information that I keep referring to, that there's no point in future tripping. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, and so why worry about it? That worrying is really just a distraction and a waste of time. And it takes me away from thinking clearly about what's actually really happening right now. The next way I play with it is to go beyond myself and to think of others. So I open, connecting with others, all the other sentient beings who are experiencing the exact same thing as me in this moment, and remembering that I'm never, ever alone. And then I let go, knowing that it will all pass and change for all of us, that we are always in that constant state of change. And then I open to a view of seeing myself, opening and trusting and connecting with my good heart and my inner wisdom, and remembering that we all have Buddha nature. And then letting go of the old self-limiting stories made up from childhood or beyond, that there's so many different layers of constructing how I think things are that are actually not true and not accurate, and they cause so much trouble. I recognize this can be tricky to find that inner wisdom and to be able to trust it versus trusting my old ways of viewing myself, because I think those old views are the truth and the reality. So that's not always an easy practice, but again and again asking that question of, is that really true? Kind of gently, curiously examining it to get to that deeper truth. And then I remember the whole spectrum of experiences. I open, connecting with times where I felt joy and inspiration, where I felt clear and confident, open and loving, and I nourish myself with that feeling of remembering those good times. And then also letting go, accepting that we all have the 84,000 afflictions, letting go of whatever's happening in this moment, and knowing that they're not fixed and solid, that the afflictions will come and go. I love that quote from Walt Whitman that he says, "We are vast. We contain multitudes." And that's very helpful in remembering that, yeah, I'm not one fixed thing. Remembering that we all have the seeds of arrogance, anger, being controlling, biased, but they're not the sum of who we are, that we contain those multitudes. And then I think of going beyond this life, open, thinking of endless past and future lives, stretching my mind to a huge, huge perspective, and then letting go of this tiny, tiny blip of a life. And this has been especially helpful in this current situation of instability, upheaval, putting it in the context of the history of humanity. And sadly, there's been power trips and racial bias between groups, tribes, ideologies since the beginning of humanity. And we've all been on both sides of that. We've been the perpetrator abusing our power, and we've also been on the receiving end of being dominated and controlled. I think a while ago I quoted something from Alex Berzin that he said in a talk he gave, where in college he did a literature review of all the great classic writers and poets and things from since Greek times. And they looked at the writers of each generation or each time, and each writer thought that their time was the most degenerate, horrible time since literature has been written down. And so that's, yeah, helpful to be like, we all think we're in this, it's so important, it's so terrible right now, but this is the situation that we're in samsara. And it's not to discount what we or dismiss what's happening, but also just to recognize it, that this is a normal afflicted mind, human behavior run by the 8 worldly concerns and ignorance. Another way to play with it is to really recognize that truth of the unsatisfactoriness of being in samsara and the situation that we're in. And to open with acceptance, because that's the key again and again of not being locked into a narrow view of right or wrong, good or bad, but to have a sense of curiosity and openness and really wanting to understand the huge, vast complexity of every situation that we're in. And then letting go of my expectations, my very narrow view and inaccurate rules of the universe of how things should be, because that's what causes so much angst and misery, and really is the root of attachment and aversion, is having those expectations. And I've recognized that the stronger my sense of I is, of thinking that I'm the center of the universe, the stronger my rules of the universe are. And so challenging those expectations again and again and recognizing they're not actually really realistic helps relieve some of the angst. And letting go of the challenges of my deeply held expectations of wanting things to be stable, safe, easy, and pleasant. Those expectations are constantly challenged and they're not realistic, but I sure hold on to them really tightly. And this winter I spent a lot of time, thanks to Venerable Sepul's review on equanimity and Venerable Kadro's teachings, and also what Geshe Tabke said about equanimity, really emphasizing that it's not just about getting rid of the fixed category of friend, enemy, and stranger, but it's really cultivating a sense of warmth, loving kindness, and towards everybody. So it's not closing off the heart, but actually opening the heart. And I've been reflecting on how that includes starting with respect and appreciation, and reconnecting with that truth that we all want happiness and all don't want to suffer, and that we're all trying our best despite our very confused, habitually conditioned minds. And it's very nourishing, I guess, to continuously set that aspiration and wish to want to really cultivate respect, appreciation, and warm-heartedness equally for everybody. And then the biggest perspective is bringing in bodhicitta and emptiness. So opening to the truth that we're totally, inseparably interdependent, and my new favorite word of interfluenced, that we're interdependent and we influence each other so much. So that's just become a word in my vocabulary now. So we're so interfluenced that we're not separate from each other, and that there's really no fixed reference point. And to open the heart in really recognizing this understanding and to cultivating the wish that all of our actions can be motivated through this deepest understanding. And then to let go, as Venerable explained in the Heart Sutra, that there really are no self-defining characteristics. That's been a really powerful reflection that I've been thinking about, that there's no self-defining characteristics. We can't pinpoint anything, that no matter how many labels we try to apply to myself or to others, that doesn't define the thing. And so really recognizing that there's no way to define that characteristic, but there's so many different ways to define everything, that everything's made of different causes and conditions, and that our karma of cause and effect are really the reason for this current experience and this current existence that we have. Another phrase that I love to play with and reflect on is that there's nothing to hold on to, that there's no inherently existent thing, that things are constantly changing, but that there's everything to expand into, that there's everything, that we're so completely connected, causes and conditions, dependent arising, and our potential for this complete peace and understanding. So I found these 3 words, open and let go, incredibly helpful to meditate on the cushion, and also when I'm standing in the food line or just feel myself getting tight, or any moment. It can be helpful in expanding the mind and then also letting go. So may we continuously practice in expanding our minds and into this really deep wisdom that we continuously lean into and open up to this much bigger view, and to continuously let go of that old view of ourselves that causes so much harm, and recognizing that this really is the best way that we can help in this moment and in every single moment in the future as we progress along the path to full awakening, so that we can truly be of benefit to all. So may we all take joy in opening and letting go.